Hi, this is Dwight Lindman from Harbor Shores. Glad to be back with you again this week as we continue our discussion about memories. If you remember, on earlier this week we talked about remembering correctly based upon Joshua chapter 12 and Matt Volwinkle's sermon on Sunday about the importance of the details, the importance of the memories, because we're prone to forget or remember incorrectly. Well, I told you that we were going to talk about some practical ways to really help us remember correctly, remember God in our memories. And so I want to look at an example from Deuteronomy chapter 6, where Moses talks to the people of Israel and gives them instructions, some really practical instructions before they enter the land, the promised land. And because he knew that they were going to be prone to forget God, they were going to be prone to stray, and they really needed to remember and remember correctly if they were going to walk faithfully and experience the blessings of God and God's wonderful goodness. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 6 through 9, Moses says, "And the words that I have commanded to you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk along the way, when you lie down, and when you get up." He said you should bind them as a sign on your hand and as a frontlet between your eyes. He also said you shall write them on the doorposts of your heart, of your house, and on the gates. Think about that. There's some real practical things in there of ways that we can remember God's statutes and testimonies and God's goodness. We should have things around us that remind us of that. We should be sharing that with people around us as we go. I call that testimony on the go, or memories on the go. It's a wonderful principle to live out. Later in that chapter, in verse 20, he talks about as he's doing that, living that out, and my son or my child or somebody I'm sharing this with says to me, "Hey, what's the meaning behind all of this?" Instead, I share the practical testimonies of my own experience of God and his work in my life. In this example, Moses was talking about how God brought the children of the nation of Israel out of the slavery in Egypt. We've all come out of slavery. We've all dealt with things in the past. Our memories and what they say about God are wonderful things to share. But hey, maybe we don't see God in some of our memories. Maybe that's a struggle. Here's the challenge. We're not seeing things correctly if that's the case, because God's there. It might be because people have done very hurtful things to us. And we say, where's God? When we look at the life of Joseph, we see a practical, a real person who was totally mistreated, sold by his brothers into slavery, lied about, thrown into jail. And yet, as we read Joseph's own words, aren't they encouraging to us when he says, "What man meant for evil, God meant for good"? Joseph could see God in it. God's there. He's always there. May we see him in it. What about my sin? I look at my sin and shame and guilt, and I recognize that God has forgiven me of those great sin. And when I look at the sin and what it leads to, total disaster, that's exactly what God said about sin. He said it will lead to disaster, and his ways are righteous or right, and they lead to wonderful blessings. He's always right. And guess what? As I go through that and I remind myself, I'm encouraged to sin less, to hate sin more. And when I share it with another brother who may be struggling with the same sin, he'll be encouraged to say, "Hey, there's hope. We can get out of this," and vice versa to me and other situations. What about blessings? God showers us with blessings at times, and we don't deserve those at all. And we can look on that and we say, God is so good. And not only that, but he's entrusted me. He's entrusted me as a steward. You may be struggling with this, as I said. And if you are, please contact us at www.harborshores.org. We would love to walk alongside with you so you can see God for who he really is and experience his blessings. One more thing. As believers, God has called us to be sharers of the gospel and make disciples in Matthew 28. I've often wondered in my life, he gives us as a command to do, but he doesn't need us. If I don't do it, he's going to accomplish his will some other way. I can't save myself, let alone somebody else. I can't even take and sanctify myself. It's up to him. So why does he have me do that? Well, I think one of the major reasons he has us do it, and this is another practical thing for us, is by sharing the gospel, we preach to ourselves. We remember over and over how great and wonderful this God is. We need to be reminded of that. So when often we think we're sharing the gospel for somebody else, I want you to think about it. We're sharing it for ourselves. We need it. Hey, we look forward to meeting together this Sunday and worshiping this great God together at 10:30 at Harbor Shores. We'd love to have you join us. If you can't join us, or or maybe you're social distancing because of COVID and staying home, we'd love to have you join on live stream together as we worship this great and wonderful God. God bless.